Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another thrilling episode of Delayed Offside. This is episode number 63, but only episode number 12 to feature Sanjay. I'm just kidding, Sanjay. I'm just kidding. We're coming hot off the start of the NHL season, so there's been lots to talk about in a short amount of time. And we're going to go to probably the thing that affects this podcast the most, which is the Battle of Alberta, specifically because three of us care and one of us doesn't. As that game started, I missed the first bit. I honestly did. And then by the time I turned on the TV, there was 3 goals. It was 2-1 for Calgary already. And I was like, holy crap. And it's they didn't miss a beat from the playoffs. They were like, goaltending is not important right now. Just goals.
You missed Edmonton. Edmonton came out flying though. There was a huge hit by Yamamoto on Uyghur. And right after that, another huge hit by Kane on Uyghur. It was like dominoes falling. And then all of a sudden, boom. They forgot how to play defense in front of Campbell.
You know what they need to do is, that Scooby-Doo meme where they take off the mask and it's someone else? They need to have Campbell and then you take it off and it's Mike Smith.
In Campbell's defense, he didn't throw the puck straight up to the center and then have to try to skate back and stop it. But yeah, no, it honestly, it was kind of crazy because it felt like a lot like the playoff games for the scrambledness, the back and forth hockey, the hits. There was less of this, seemed like less visceral hatred than some of the other games had prior. And maybe that's because certain people are gone. Right. It's game 1. There's only 3. There's a lot of new faces in it, although there's still some animosity there no matter what. But I think you have to say it was still a very entertaining game. And even if you're an Oiler fan and you didn't get the outcome you wanted, I think you were still pretty enthralled because they really clawed their way back into it by the end of that game, really.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was an excellent game. The animosity said, I felt like it was there early, but then I think they kind of put it away to finish the game. Opening faceoff, Kane's jawing at Mangiapane. And then the really thing that was weird was after the Oilers scored their first goal, Draisaitl went out of his way just to hit Uyghur for no reason whatsoever. I was like, that's totally uncalled for. That's just unnecessary, Draisaitl. But he's I think he's gonna wear the goat horns or something going forward, not Kachuk because he's gone. But I think Draisaitl really hates Calgary. I think even more so than McDavid. That guy hates to lose to Calgary.
He has more personality too. He just does. And he shows it. And you can tell when he's engaged. I mean, if you remember his first playoff run, he speared a San Jose Shark player right in the nuts.
Yeah. So I think him and I don't know who on Calgary is gonna be the Kachuk. Who's gonna step up and kind of agitate Kadri. But Kadri annoyed Oiler fans, but he's because of how good he played.
But he does other things too. I'm not a player, so I'm not there when Kadri is hard on my stick or pushing me in the corner or stuff like that. And I think that does build animosity, right? So I think he could fit that role. Now, Ryan, because you're not necessarily anyone that has skin in this game, what were your takeaways from the first Battle of Alberta?
Well, I'll admit I didn't actually watch the entire game, but I did watch the quick preview or the quick summary video of it. And it was goal done. Well, it was interesting in that Jackie Campbell, he just seemed to kind of get shell shocked there. So I felt kind of bad for him, even though I wasn't happy he left the Leafs. I really do like Jack Campbell. I'm hoping he has great success with the Oilers, and it just hasn't really turned out that great for him so far. I mean, it's very, very early in the season, but he has not looked great so far in this season. And then the Oilers came storming back, and I mean, it's incredible how just the top tier talent on the Oilers, they're never out of it, right? You can be up 4-5-0, and you can't just sit back because those guys can just score at will. And we've seen that time and time again.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's been horrible. His first periods have been horrible, but if you watch that first game against Vancouver, he was solid in the second and third.
Your audio just jacked up, and
it was you just were
jacked up.
You know what?
Yeah, let me tell you how the battle is. As he cranks the power on his mic.
But I kind of disagree there. I don't think he's been playing horribly. I think his first periods have been horrible. I think his second period, third period against Vancouver were fantastic. He held Edmonton in and made some huge saves.
Now, do you think the reason that he's not necessarily having a good start here so far is him, or do you think it's his defense?
No, it's defense. They're letting everyone and anyone in around the net and get second chances. They're not clogging up that area. They're not pushing guys out of the way. Like if you look at Calgary yesterday, who was it? It was Mangiapane and I think Dubé right in front of the net. One was ready to bury it. The other was ready to get the rebound, and no one was stopping them.
Yeah,
that's fair. I don't think you can let Jack Campbell off the hook though either.
I agree.
When you look at the advanced stats with goals saved,
you're just trying to make yourself feel better, Pilon.
I saw a number once, and this number's big, and that's bad, you guys. Okay, Ryan.
Okay,
I'm just saying. Yeah, you take a look at how many goals he's given up as opposed to what he should be expected versus as to how much is being thrown at him. He's at minus 2.4 right now, which has him ranked 49th in the league out of 55 goalies that have played so far. So it's still very early. I'm assuming it's just going to take him a little time to get adjusted to the new structure, the new teammates. There's probably a lot more pressure. I shouldn't say there's more pressure on him, because how can you get more pressure than when playing in Toronto? But signing a new big contract, right? And now you have to actually play up to that amount, and you have to be worth $5 million for 5 years. So there is pressure there for sure. And it hasn't been a great start, but I'm sure he'll bounce back.
Just to counter you, their backup goalie, or their other goalie, Stuart Skinner, is in the top 5 on the reverse side of that. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a balance. It's called a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. He played really well.
He did, actually. He settled them down.
He played great.
Yeah. Like if they kept Campbell in, the score could have been 7-1, like 8-1. Like Skinner played unbelievable. He had some great saves. That one power play, Calgary had like 3 or 4 chances, like Lindholm, Huberdeau, Toffoli. They were just like a shooting gallery, and he was stopping everything. Like if he started that game, it would have been a completely different game.
Well, let's talk about Calgary for a bit here. So there was a little bit of a surprise to start into the game, because I think the assumption was Markstrom was going to start that game. And then when the day of the game came, it was Dan Vladar who was in the starters net. Is this a little bit of an audible, or do they not have faith in Markstrom, or or is this just like give this guy a chance? Because if you listen to a lot of accounts, the way it was going, a lot of people felt Vladar deserved his start in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I was one of them. Like, I thought he played really well last season. Markstrom wasn't getting it done. You're on your last chance, game 4, game 5. Why not give him a start? And it could have changed the series. I guess maybe Calgary felt like Markstrom's their goalie of their future. You got to play him, and maybe he'll play himself out of it. But he never did. Like, all 5 of those games, he didn't look as good as he did against Dallas. So am I surprised that they went with Vladar? A little bit, honestly. Like, it was the right move given how well Vladar played. But if you're the Flames and you want to win the Stanley Cup, Markstrom's your goalie who's going to have to get it done. As good as Vladar played, he's still so unproven. He's your number 2. Markstrom is going to play 50 games, 60 games this year. And I don't know, Sutter, he's much smarter than me. So maybe it's like a message to Markstrom as well, kind of like get him pissed off. So the next time he plays the Oilers, he's like chomping at the bit. He's like, I'm ready to go, let's go. But it could also backfire, because now maybe it's in his head, right? Like next time he plays Edmonton, he's like, oh, Daryl didn't have faith in me last game, or, the playoffs didn't go so well. So it'll be interesting to see who they play the next time they play Edmonton.
I did read in an article that Sutter's wanting to decrease the load on Markstrom this year. Mm-hmm. Like, he wants to play the backup more often this year. Maybe he's thinking that by the time they got to the second round of the playoffs, Markstrom just had nothing left in the tank. Maybe so. It could just be because of that he just wants to give Markstrom a few more days off here and there.
Doesn't want to take him out to pasture.
But I think you make a good point. He had more starts last year, something like 63 starts. Like that's a fair bit. You're back.
But back in the day, 20. That wasn't that much, right? Like,
yeah, back in the
70,
day,
72.
Yeah, and how many cups did they win with him being that tired?
That's true.
Yeah, something to think about.
That's a fair point, right? Like, goalies nowadays, like, how much did Shesterkin play? He's the number 1 goalie right now. Did he play a ton last year. I don't even know how many he played, but
Saros played a fair bit. I think he was a guy who got rode a fair bit.
But then he got injured at
team.
the end of the season. Too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a new NHL, right? Like you can't have like that one workhorse Brodeur that plays like 70 games a year anymore. You got to have 60, maybe cap it at.
That's right. Because if you rely on a tender like that, like, and just lean on him so much, turns into Matt Murray.
So last year, just looking at games, so Saros played the most with 67 games. Hellebuck 66, Demko 64, Vasilevsky and Markstrom had 63, and then no one after that had above 60. Then it gets into like the high 50s. But
that's actually a good segue into our next thing, which is the Leafs goaltending duo. So for those of you that may be aware, and you shouldn't be if you're watching this podcast, because I mean, if you're watching this level of hockey, like stuff online, you definitely probably know something because you're just desperate for content at this stage.
Yeah.
But
what do you mean? We're the number 4 podcast in Regina for hockey.
Hey, we got a new subscriber yesterday.
It probably thinks that we're, if they were to look under the trending things, it probably has something for like delayed and being like late for something, you know, or offside being like offensive content. Like it probably just has it mixed up and we're 32nd in something. But early on, so if you're not aware, like Matt Murray was traded from the Ottawa Senators for most of the cap hit, not all of it, but something like
25% Ottawa retained.
Right. So they brought him in for basically 3/4 of the price. And then they grabbed, which is the goaltender again from
Samsonov.
Samsonov. I was getting him and Sorokin mixed up, and I'm like, no, Sorokin's Islanders, but I just didn't remember.
Hey, so man, I get Lindholm and Backstrom. Sorry, Lindholm and Backlund.
Apparently Backstrom and Backlund too.
All of them. It's just if I would do like a giant X across, like people, like the old family feud. But anyway, so they switched their goaltending up after having kind of a lackluster year from Campbell and Mrazek, and so it became kind of this big focal point because a lot of people are like, man, Matt Murray. Game 1 doesn't necessarily go hot for Matt Murray. I think he was beaten on the glove side all 4 of the goals, wasn't it?
Pretty close, if not all of them. Yeah.
So, and then the next game, Samsonov plays, they win it. And then he's supposed to play last night, but early in practice suffers a groin injury. And there was a lot of speculation what was going to happen. Is he going to be done for a little while? Is he just tweaked it and out of the practice? Or is he going to be done for a little bit? It looks like he's going to be out for 4 weeks.
At least 4 weeks.
Yeah, enough that the LTIR space has allowed them to pull up some people. But they're in a little bit of trouble here because a lot of their goaltenders, even their AHL goaltenders, are currently injured, meaning they have to fill those spots some way. And this relates into 2 things. So Ryan, I'll go to you about the Leafs goaltending so far, and then others can throw in their thoughts. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the cap situation.
Sure. Sounds good. Kind of a nightmare start to Matt Murray's tenure with the Leafs. And, this was one of the gambles that Dubas was taking. Not only can Murray return to form of his playing time in Pittsburgh, but also can he stay healthy? Because he has been on LTIR a lot over the past few years. And, he took that gamble with Mrazek as well and Campbell, and both, always got injured. And it's happened again. Matt Murray, after 1 game, is on LTIR. So it's the worst case scenario for the Leafs. Matt Murray had I wouldn't say he had a terrible first game, but it certainly wasn't great either. He let in 1 really bad goal, but like the Leafs overall played really bad in front of him too. It was just like a blah game to me for him. Nothing to panic about, but nothing to be excited about either. So I was interested to see how he would do in the second game. And then, we're not going to see it for at least 4 weeks. And it gets me nervous because we just went through this with Mrazek. And if you remember with Mrazek, he could never get his footing because he got injured right away. He would come back. He was rusty and cold and he played horribly. And then he got injured again. And then he come back and played terrible. And I'm just worried it's going to end up like that. So
sounds like great Anderson as well. Like sounds like kind of the same thing that happened with not
Freddie.
Anderson. Freddie Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, during the last part of his tenure, he had some injury issues too. Yeah, it's just been bad with the Leafs with goalie injuries lately. Yeah. Now, I mean, on the positive side of things, so Samsonov, I hear the different variations in how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure which one's correct, but
I'll
know
that he doesn't like Ovechkin. That's enough, really.
Yeah. I heard about that. He had a rough start to that Washington game. After the game, he said he was really nervous, but he let in a softie or two. But after that, he's actually played fairly decent. And then against Ottawa too, I thought he played pretty good. So again, nothing spectacular, nothing where I'm like, holy crap, like we have, a Vezina caliber goaltender here or anything like that, but enough to give them competent goaltending. Now, again, it's really early. It's been 2 games, so I'm not going to say eureka, Dubas found our starter, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he can at least hold down the fort until Murray comes back. So it's not all doom and gloom. There was concern, like you said, Baron, about injuries to other goaltenders. It sounds like Shalgren's actually been cleared to play, so that avoids another issue because Wall is also injured. So if you went through Shalgren and Wall, I'm not really sure who's the next goalie after that would be coming up. But luckily, Shalgren's okay to be in that backup position for now. So, and then you talk about the cap. It does open up a few things, and that now they can bring up Nick Robertson and insert him into the lineup because he really deserved a spot in the first place. They just didn't have the cap space for him, and he was waiver exempt. So
I think it's him, Simmons, and who else?
Simmons they brought up, and then Victor Mete they brought up. Yeah. So now they have some guys to help like relieve guys, do some load management, get some guys in if some other guys aren't playing well. So it gives them a lot more flexibility, which is the nice thing. But I mean, obviously you would prefer that Matt Murray was playing amazing and he stayed healthy. So, we'll see how it goes from here on in. I'm just hoping he can come back, stay healthy the rest of the year and find a good, provide some great goaltending for the Leafs when he comes back. But I am nervous that it's going to just be Mrazek all over again.
So one of the things that has occurred because of this, like we said, is that teams were so tight to the cap that it's absolutely almost impossible. So LTIR actually became a benefit to some because what it doesn't allow you to go over the cap. What it allows you to do is to spend the amount that is spent on LTIR is like a compensation thing. So they don't consider it over the cap. It's kind of a weird thing. But when we were looking at teams that did it, there were several teams that were very, very tight to it. So I'm trying to go through the Puckpedia page right now as I look at it. But there's been a lot of tweets in the last little while. I think the Leafs were how close to the cap? It was like $4. Vancouver, I believe, was like dead on.
Like zero rate on the money, I think.
Yeah, the Oilers were like 120 some bucks, so it was also quite close.
That's 2 popcorns at Rogers Arena.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. That's a night. That's not even the night on the town that'll get you to the end of the first period.
Yeah, that's special.
But like it's become a thing now where it's essentially teams, because of the lack of increase in cap, have had to go to this. Now, what do you guys think about this? Is this like a huge problem, or is this something that? Oh, here it is. Okay, I found the list here. Canucks $0. Leafs $4, Vegas 17, Bolts 33, Oilers 165, Canes 14, Flyers 59,000, like 14,000, 59,000, Canadians 306, Panthers 442, St. Louis 530, and so forth. So your top 5 are essentially Oilers, Bolts, Vegas, Leafs, and Canucks, and they are tight to it. Tight.
Yep.
So does this become a huge problem, or is this something that's just temporary, or do we think that teams need to do something? Like, I don't know. Where do you guys feel about this? I'll tell you what I feel after, but I'll hear what you guys say.
I think it's created a really difficult product to put on the ice for sure, especially when the cap hasn't gone up all that much over the last, let's say, 5 years. 10 would 10 be okay
since the pandemic, right? So
yeah, so there's not much wiggle room, and it doesn't there hasn't been wiggle room. And then new contracts come up, new players need to be signed, and performance plays into that. And then there's more money gone, and you ultimately start to dissipate funds that you just can't hold on to any longer because your prospects are now earning more money, or other players are having to take major cuts to, comply with the team and ice a competitive product.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues that come with going that close to the cap, and I understand why they do. I mean, you're trying to better your team, and to do that, you need to bring in good players, and they're going to demand more money, and now you have less and less cap room to maneuver with. And it's pretty shrewd, some of the stuff they do to make it all fit, but at the same time, it does cause issues, right? And so, am I hard of hearing? Are you hard of hearing, Baron, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I just can't hear you. Keep going though.
Can you guys hear me? Is my mic working?
I had headphones on. Come on, man.
Okay. So it does create issues. So, like, I mean, number one, like I said, it limits the roster size, right? So you might not be able to have any extras on the roster. So you might not be able to do load management. You might not have people on the road to go in if there's injuries, that type of thing. And then you sometimes can't even ice a full lineup, right? There's been times in the past where teams will go in without even a full lineup, and they have to do one game of that before they can have the emergency call up option. So that's happened before. And like I said, it doesn't always allow you to ice the best lineup. So, like, again, for the Leafs, I'd argue Nick Robertson proved in the preseason that he was deserving of being on the starting roster, but because of the cap issues and because he was waiver exempt, he was sent back down. Now, did that make the Leafs the best possible team at that time, the best version of themselves? No, I would argue it did not. But because they figured at some point there'd be an injury and they'd be able to bring him up, and they didn't want to lose Mulligan on waivers or anyone else on waivers, they had to maneuver it in that way, and he had to go be sent down. So you're not necessarily even icing your best lineup. And I mean, you look at some of the free agents out there. I mean, there was some decent names to be had, and some of these teams just can't add these players. Like, I don't know if the cap issue is the reason like Calgary didn't sign Sonny Milano or not, but I was pretty surprised.
He didn't have a good camp.
I heard he did, but I was pretty surprised because I mean he was a free agent.
Washington signed him anyways.
I heard, yeah. Washington signed him. So, but you know, maybe there was some free agents out there too that you know, maybe they would have been able to add to their roster, or even at the trade deadline. You know, when you're this tight to the cap, you're going to be a lot more limited in the moves you can make to improve your team. It's going to be more dollar in, dollar out, right? So it makes it harder. So there's a lot of limitations with being this tight to the cap.
So when we're talking about this, like, we understand, like, at this point that it's hard for these teams to actually do it, but essentially, if you want to build a contender, you got to spend money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we haven't really talked about that part of it. And it does provide opportunity for young guys to get games. Like, you have to play young players now. For me, I think this is actually interesting because I think it forces teams to do something. If you remember, after the lockout, when the salary cap got introduced, we ended up having roughly some of the largest trades that had occurred in the NHL. So things like Hossa getting traded for Heatley, stuff like that. We're starting to see that kind of movement again, where people are having to do that. Whereas before they'd be like, you know what, we'll suck it up because, you know, we don't care that we have to pay this guy an extra $1 million than we would like to, or $2 million than we'd like to, because it's better than buying them out. Now you're seeing people have to try to move stuff, have to be creative. And I think that that's actually good for the league. They've gotten kind of stagnant around this, and potentially we've opened up some avenues here. I think it's going to be very interesting to see forward. Last year, everyone was laughing at Vegas for having to play short, but now other teams are having to do it too.
Yeah. And like a team like Arizona or Buffalo or Carolina can use that cap space that they have as like asset, right? Like if someone like Edmonton wanted to add a player at the deadline, be like, okay, well, Jesse Puljujarvi, who makes like 1.3 million or whatever he makes, I don't know what it is now. It's like three or something.
Three
something. Three, yeah, it's three. So like, you give us that $3 million contract for nothing, right? Like they get like good players for nothing. Like Sean Monahan got traded along with a first round pick for nothing, future considerations. And so like teams like Arizona, Carolina, you know, are especially Arizona and Buffalo, like teams that aren't expected to be good. Yeah, they'll take your bad contracts and they'll get a lot of first round picks and, you know, slowly build up. So, you know, it's just another evolution of like the cycle of like tanking, right? Like you'll see like these overpaid veterans or these veterans getting traded from contenders to the bottom feeders. So that way the contenders up against the cap can add someone at the trade deadline.
I think honestly, you'll see it after this year where those teams actually start taking on better contracts. because this year it's not beneficial to you. You want to try to get Bedard. You might as well suck as much as you can.
Yeah,
but after you've got your draft position, after it's done, then why not? Right? Why can't you? Okay, I'll take your good player for like a pick. I mean, the one that reaped the benefit of this the most was Carolina. Like they picked up Brent Burns, they picked up Pacioretty. Those are two useful players, and they were able to get them from their teams because those teams needed to move money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. We'll move on a bit here to the statement from the the Canadian women's hockey team. They put out a statement in regards to the stepping down, the changes occurring with the board, which had probably come a little bit later than anyone would actually like. I think it would have been better a couple of months ago now, but it's finally happened. But they put up the statement, and part of the thing is they said is we want equal representation for this process to be like represented on this board and everything else. And I think it's kind of crazy because if you think about it, they really sell how much and how involved it is with the women's game. So it's kind of surprising to me that they don't have that level of advice in it. Like, I mean, like one of the biggest Canadian hockey players of all time is Hayley Wickenheiser, and they use her every chance to advertise. It's not just advertise like hockey, like women's hockey, but it's like Canadian hockey. Wickenheiser is one of those people. And it's odd to me to think that it's taken this long for them to actually get that, or they still don't have that representation. Do you think that this is something like it's something long coming, but do you think that this is something that they're going to finally get?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Me too.
It's tough because like Team Canada for the last, year, I mean, before that, but they haven't done very much right? Like, so hopefully they can finally get it right with this because they deserve it, right? Like, if you look at the women's hockey game and just like how much revenue they bring in and like the women's game and how much it's growing and the participation of women and girls playing hockey, it's growing so fast. And the fact that they're not equally represented, it's about time that they right that wrong.
And I think the board needs to be more diverse, right? It can't be a bunch of old white guys that have come up through Hockey Canada, have been part of the whole culture the entire time. Not saying that's what the board entirely consisted of last time, but I mean, come on, like it was probably pretty close to that. So like, yeah, I think you need obviously more women from, on the board. You need representatives of the LGBT community. You need a wide range of ages and ethnicities and backgrounds and experiences. Like, I mean, that's really, I think the only way you're going to actually have change is if you have as many different perspectives at the table as possible. So all those different voices can be heard. Right.
So sorry, I'm that.
No, I thought it was well said on both your points too. And, there's such a heavy emphasis on, the male Olympic hockey team or, the world juniors, even. Like, let's highlight something else. Let's see what else is available in hockey, because it's not only young men that can play it.
Well, and you look at the ratings for the women's gold medal game for like Team Canada, they're like just as high as the men's, right? Like it's so high, and like the ratings of the women's gold medal game is like better than 99% of the NHL games in terms of like who's watching.
So like, I think this process is going to be occurring for a while now. Like, honestly, the Team Canada thing is probably going to be an issue. Like the issues are going to be dealt with, or like the reconciliation, I guess, that's going to come from this, or is going to be occurring over the next little while. So we're going to have lots to talk about when it comes to it. And honestly, I think this is going to be one of those big, long-standing things. If you go back and you read the old stuff, there's always these conversations around Hockey Canada and how things have to change, but those are always specific to how the game was played or how players were developed. But even like since like I think in Ken Dryden's book, The Game, he literally talks about issues with it and how things had to be revamped and so forth. And I think Hockey Canada is like that. It's like a growing, living thing where it has to adapt and develop and change. And if it doesn't adapt to the times, then it just won't survive. And with provinces not giving them funding, sponsors not giving them funding, it's in trouble. And so if it's going to actually survive, it's going to, one, have to reconcile the stuff that's happened. And two, it's going to have to change. So
do you know that's when the big changes started happening, is when all the advertisers started backing out. Right, like the director didn't want to back down. What's his name? Was Smith?
I think so.
Yeah. Anyways, he didn't want to back down, and all of a sudden you start hearing about these advertisers dropping off, and all of a sudden, he's gone. Like,
yeah,
money talks, man.
Yeah. It's true, and it's we're talking billions. Like when provinces are saying, "Yeah, I'm not paying you the money," that's a lot of money. Like the province of Quebec for hockey, that's a lot of money. So something important to think about. Yeah, I don't have like I think I posted the pictures, but if we want to talk about retro reverse, and you want to throw the image up here, Ryan, at any point because they are in the thing. Let's talk with some of the Canadian ones, and the one that's the most controversial amongst this group would have to be the Vancouver Canucks jersey. So we'll get Ryan to pop that bad boy up here, but it is the one that I made the suggestion, and the right suggestion, that the image of this jersey is great. Like it's fine. What I said was it should have been done in the black skate jersey color. And my argument for that is simply this: they always use this color scheme, the green, the blue, green, and white color scheme, like the old kind of Whalers secondary uniform color scheme. They always go back to that. And it's like you have this other set of jerseys, you have all these other sets, whether it's the yellow, the triangle, they have all these different things. But the only color scheme they ever use for any like fourth jersey is the same color scheme they've always used. So I thought it should have been something different. That was my take on it. But Adam, you tell me why it's so great about this jersey.
I loved it. I love the colors. I love the symbol. I love what's his name? Johnny
Canuck.
Johnny Canuck. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. But you know what? I could be led to that side as well, Baron, with the Johnny Canuck on the symbol, but using different colors, using that red and black with making his beard like black maybe, and like his toque the different colors, and like the jersey. I think that'd be kind of a cool idea. So you can kind of sway me there.
Yeah. And the Canucks are kind of weird because they've always had so many different logos and images over the years, whether it's the stick, whether it's the whale, whether it's the blade. Like it's just been so much. That's our first of the retro reverse series.
Before we go on, I just wanted to add something. I actually saw this jersey in person. A lady was wearing it at the Flames preseason game against the Canucks, and it looks fantastic in person. I saw it on the concourse, and it's a fantastic jersey. The cresting looks good.
I think this is yet.
I know. I was surprised that she was wearing it. I was like, "What's going on here?" I didn't want to be creepy and take a picture, but I was like, "This is pretty crazy that like she's wearing a not released jersey." I don't know if like it's a prototype or what's going on, but it looks fantastic, and I think it's going to look great on TV. I like that color scheme. The logo is something cool, something different. I can't remember who said it on TSN, but they said the Canucks are the only Canadian franchise without an iconic logo. Like every other Canadian team, you know exactly when you say their name, you picture their logo in your head. With the Canucks, you're like, which one do you go with? Is it the skate logo? Is it the whale? What colors is it? You know, they have different color schemes. So,
what do you guys picture when you hear the name Canucks? Like, what logo do you picture?
I picture the one that Naslund wore with like the navy blue and the whale.
Yeah. Is that the same ones the Sedins wore during their cup run?
Yeah.
No, the Canuck, the cup run was like the white and green. This one I'm thinking of like 0304, like before they changed it.
But just the logo, what do you think of? Like,
I would think
that,
of the whale.
that one.
I would think the whale too. Mind you, I like the skate better.
I like the skate the whale more.
Yeah, the stick's cool too, right?
I think
like, that's kind of classic.
That's what I think. The stick.
Oh yeah.
The stick is nice when you don't see it for a long time, but other than that, it's really bland.
I like the skate jersey the best, but like that was back with the Russian Rocket, right? Like it was an exciting team, and that's the one that I grew up on, right? So that's the one I like the most. But I think of the whale.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a fair point, but yeah, like so the jersey came out it's not out yet, but that's one of the ones I think we start with where I think that's the new one coming out. By all accounts, it's supposed to look like. I think it's a sharp looking jersey. I just think you've used that color scheme a lot. Like go somewhere else. Mind you, last time they did go off the board for a color scheme, it was that maroon jersey that they wore at the Heritage Classic.
Oh yeah,
and it was not necessarily well loved. So you could actually buy Luongo's pads because they were unused from that game, like from the team store, because he got traded not long after that, right? It was him and Tortorella. So crazy times. With that, we'd like to wrap up the episode. Thank you for listening to Delayed Offside. As always, like, click, subscribe. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. LinkedIn. No, I don't know what else we have. But yeah. You take
What are
care.
the kids
Thanks
on
for
these
listening.
days?
OnlyFans.
Yeah, everything.
OnlyFans.
Honestly, yeah, we should paywall. Like I've been using this Tim's Cup for
And
2
now
years,
for
and we
an
haven't got a
R-rated
single
Willie
dollar
weighs
from these
in.
bastards. So
Yeah.
what am I
How'd you like
bothering?
that
you know?
offside?
The triple X Willie weighs in.
Frameworth sitting here, marketing galore, nothing, not a damn thing. Like Adam's got artists behind him, you got stuff like Sanjay. Like, why can't like a DVD company sponsor us? I mean, honest to God,
Right? Come on now. They're rolling in the dough these days.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
exactly. With that, thanks for listening. I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sanjay.
This is Delayed Offside. Keep fit and have fun. No, I think somebody else owns that one. I don't think I could say that. Damn.
Yeah. Keep fun and be fit.
Yeah, there you go.